because today's show is brought to you by Manscaped. You know, the ladies in below the waistline grooming. And we were just talking about ball security. Well, hey, you want ball security, ladies and gentlemen? Manscaped, they're the ones to give it to you. All right. And how do they do that? Well, that Lawnmower 4.0, the new thing. I'm talking, you know, waterproof, light that you can turn on and off. You know, it's a safe situation, low and slow. Make sure you don't get any nicks and cuts, nothing like that. I mean, it's a dope little vibe. I mean, I personally like it a lot. I tell you, man. Strobe light it if I want to. Sometimes keep the light all the way off and just spotlight me. All right. But either way, you know, if we're going to talk about them for a reason. Because we got a promo code for you, ladies and gentlemen. And that promo code is MOATS. You use that on your purchase at manscaped.com. You will receive 20% off of your purchase along with free shipping worldwide. Deke, who doesn't love free shipping, bro?
I'm not sure.
It's like it's they're going to send it to you, Deke, but you don't got to pay for it. It's free shipping. Like, how do you beat that?
I don't know. I think insane people don't like that.
That's all I'm saying, man. So don't be an insane person, all right? Make sure you use the promo code MOATS. Get your 20% off at manscaped.com. And when I tell you, your dangly twins will be very appreciative of you, trust me on this, because I'm an expert. All right. So with that being said, shout out to Manscaped. You quarterbacks, man?
Yeah, you got to start quarterbacks.
All right.
I'm sorry. You have to.
I was hoping so, because I've been excited about these guys, and rightfully so.
What do we want to do? Just go like player by player?
Yeah, we'll do that then. Or because we know the hot people we got to talk about: quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, Kendrick Green, the offensive line. We'll talk some of these corners: Monty Casey, Trey Noor. We'll talk some of them dudes, and then whoever else pops up in the chat, man, we'll obviously, you know, go from there. Because I'm sure we'll have plenty of names that they'll want to hear about, wanting to have discussed and stuff like that. So, you know, and if anybody that pops up in your mind while we talking about this thing organically, that also. But starting with Mitch, I thought that he was really clean. Talk about his 2 drives out there. First drive, 3 minutes, 90 yards, touchdown. It's a heck of a way to open the preseason out, man. I thought that he did good just in terms of taking the throws that were there for him. You know, he was patient with the offense. I thought he had command of the offense the whole time, and he just looked like QB1. He looked comfortable out there. He looked like a guy who's led a team before, who's been in the postseason before. He never appeared to be rattled. I really enjoyed his ability to get guys involved like a Gunnar Olszewski early in the game. I mean, getting a chance to talk to Gunnar during OTAs, that was one of the things that he had talked to me about specifically, was saying that, hey, he knows what he can do as a return man, but this is the part of his game where he's really trying to evolve, trying to develop that aspect. And even though we see some of it in practice, it still isn't the same because it is practice. So it was good to see some of that carry over into the stadium. And then obviously, you know, him being able to just take advantage of a blown coverage, finishing out that drive, getting a touchdown. Mm-hmm. But I thought that Mitch also, I like the fact that he got a chance to show off some of his speed and athletic ability. The miscommunication up front, and I'll talk about that in a second, in terms of that free rusher and stuff like that. It was good to see Mitch be able to sidestep, get up, and then, you know, get out that pocket.
Little Ben-esque.
Absolutely. And then the one where the drive ends up stalling, it was the miscommunication between him and Gunnar Olszewski.
Dude,
he's driving, he's stepping up in the pocket, and he's leading Gunnar because he's expecting Gunnar to keep going. But it's early in the year. This is the preseason. You get that type of miscommunication. That was shown on that play. Also on the Mason near pick is miscommunication with him and Connor Hayward as well when you look at the all-22 copy and stuff like that. So for me, man, going back to Mitch, though, I thought that he really did good in terms of just helping himself stay in front. You knew whatever Kenny was going to do in that game, some of it, you're going to talk about it, and it's right. Some of it is also going to be, how do they say it, right? It's going to be bigger. It's kind of like that. Yeah, you know how it is. It's like that, the myth. It's like, hey, man, the longer it goes, it just gets bigger. You're like, bro, he did what? You would think he had like 500 yards, 7 touchdowns, and, you know, walked off with who knows what as he was leaving the stadium. But that's just a part of it. But for Mitch, I thought that he did everything he needed to do in the time that he had. And for me, man, I just thought his performance was clean across the board. So I like that. Now, when it came to Mason, dude, the fact that he got booed like that for a preseason game, I'm still kind of shocked. I was like, dude, this is out of control, bro. Like, what are we doing here, man?
That's absolutely atrocious.
I'm just trying to figure out, like,
dude's done nothing wrong.
Like, seriously.
Outside of just not being the quarterback you've expected him to be up to this point. And he played good. Again, he played good today.
Bro, what?
Or not today. I'm sorry,
Saturday.
2 days ago.
Yeah, but that was the part for me where I'm like, listen, I'm just like, bro, are they for real? It was just crazy, man. But, you know, we can't control how people react, and I understand that. I mean, if that's one of them situations, you know, hopefully we all learn from it. But him having to handle that, and then the first play he's in there, Dan Moore getting beat, and it's a strip sack. I saw people even trying to put that on him. I'm like, bro, you can't say that was his fault either. Like, God
it
dang.
definitely wasn't his fault, but I think there is just a theory going around. If Mason's in there, something's going to go wrong. Because you think back to last preseason game, or last preseason, the first game against the Cowboys, Mason, again, had a solid game, but he's in there, and that's when the whole fumble happens with the jet sweep. It's not Mason's fault, but it's just like, what can go wrong will go wrong. I've been calling it Mason's Law.
Yeah, but the thing that I do like is this, though, man. Even after that, what does he do? A couple plays later, has the throw of the night, man. The 26-yard bomb to Pickens. I mean, it was crazy. This is how you know the hate for Mason is real. They were trying to not even talk about that throw.
It's an unreal
I'm like,
throw.
bro, that ball placement, man, that was like, that's Ben-esque. Like, if we're being real about it, he's the type of dude that makes those type of throws. We don't see Mason make that type of throw typically.
He had like a Russell Wilson arc on it,
Absolutely, man. And when we talk about Mason, the knock on him, even what I've told you throughout training camp in terms of how he's been playing well, and even when he started to not play so hot, the biggest knock was he doesn't want to take chances downfield with the ball as often as a Mitch or a Kenny would. And at times, he doesn't extend the play. He looks like he's rattled when that first or second read isn't there. But I thought in both in terms of those particular knocks on Mason, I thought that he showed in this game that he has grown. The 26-yard bomb, like I said, beautiful ball placement on that, taking a chance, putting it where only his receiver could get it. That wasn't a easy throw, man. That's big boy throw right there. I also thought that he did a good job of handling the O-line struggling in front of him. I understand this narrative of Mason being a statue, but you can look at a play where he has to maneuver out the pocket on the run, hit Gunnar Sheshk. I think it was like a 7 or 8 yard pass. I look at stuff like that and I'm like, that's not typical Mason. For those that say this is a typical Mason performance, I don't agree with that. I thought that Mason really, showed a lot more that he was capable of, things that we haven't really seen as consistently as we would have thought or hoped we would have when we drafted him. But I thought it was really good to see that from him. And in terms of, like I said, the miscommunication between him and Connor, it looks like Connor is like hesitating just a slight, and he's already leaning into that thing and going with it. It's a tight window. And I get the people that are going to say, well, why would you throw it into double coverage? It wasn't double coverage when he was going to release the ball. It would have been a bang, bang throw and catch. But how can we praise a combat catch and then talk about the throw into a tight area? That's a part of combat catching.
He had another one that was borderline dropped on a slant route.
Absolutely, it was
zone,
to Miles Boykins. Absolutely, on the backside. Absolutely. So it's like those are the tight window throws that the elite quarterbacks make. I thought the one that he threw to the right side on that slant, I thought Miles, it looked like he could have came down with it. I don't know if the DB really got his hand in there or not, but it was still, I like the timing of it. And then when you're talking about the one to Connor, like I said, if Connor just keeps going, I don't know why he hesitated, but he's young. And it could be, like I said, easy miscommunication. He thinking his man or thinking his zone, whatever. But that was part of that. But when you're talking about bang, bang catches, when you're talking about bang, bang plays like we see all the time, and we applaud these guys that make those plays, you can't turn around and now say, hey, man, why would he make that decision? That's a terrible throw. That's not accurate, because that's what we want from these guys at times. We want them to take chances. And when you're talking about Mason, the knock has been the lack of aggression with the arm in terms of throwing the ball. So I did like that. And then for him, man, touchdown on a drive, a field goal on a drive. And he had the other, like I said, the last drive that kind of stalled and stuff like that. But I definitely liked him. And then when it comes to Kenny, man, the dude looked like what we've been seeing in terms of the athletic ability on full display. The movement of the pocket was what I really enjoyed early on. I thought I really liked what Matt Canada was doing in particular when he had Kenny out there. In terms of, number one, moving the pocket and then protecting him. Man, get you some safe throws, get you some feel-good throws, some stuff that's going to have you feeling confident. Because I think at one point he had like 5 or 6 completions, not a lot of yards, but he was feeling good. He was getting in a rhythm, and that's the thing that I like.
On the first drive.
Yeah, I definitely like that. And then from there, him being able to open it up a little bit more. I thought that for him, it was a little bit of a learning experience in terms of the speed of this game, because I've seen him in college outrun them dudes. I think it was 50 that grabbed him in the end zone, or grabbed him by the end zone and slammed him down. And then the one where it was like the fourth and 1 or whatever. I've seen him outrun them dudes before. But at the NFL, it is a faster game. And that's the part that he'll get used to. He'll understand that and adjust to it. And just understanding the difference of when to get rid of that ball, when to try to outrun that guy. Because you don't want your quarterback taking those type of shots. Seeing him getting slung down by the arm like that, I was like, oh, buddy, that ain't cool. it was kind of funny because like I said, I thought it was like me grabbing somebody little, but I was like, yo, I don't want my quarterback getting grabbed like that. So that part was not cool. But in terms of Kenny, man, I thought that he did an excellent job, man, in terms of looking the part. The confidence was there. The leadership was there. I don't care if he's out there with the third unit. If you're out there with the third unit, make it look like it then. Make it look like you're the guy. And I thought that he definitely did that on multiple occasions. I also like what he was able to do with Connor Hayward as well, man, hitting him a couple of times. Definitely going to talk about him a little later on in the show. But for me, man, the one thing that continues to stand out as it pertains to Kenny Pickett, regardless of the technique, regardless of however it looks, this dude is a competing son of a gun. Like, you watch him in practice, it doesn't matter who's in front of him and what they've done. He's out there at your neck. You watch him in his college tape, he's out there at your neck. You watch him in this game, bro, you win it. Like, the 20th overall selection typically is not caring about winning the fourth quarter of a preseason game. They're not playing with that type of passion. They're not playing. But you look at Kenny, man. Kenny is out there like, yo, it matters. And that, to me, was the most impressive part, man, because that's not something that you could take for granted. When you talk about it mattering, you look at how Kenny was playing, you look at Kenny's effort, and tell me it didn't matter to him. Then on the flip side, because Devin is the one that people are talking about, at times you look at his effort, at times you look at his demeanor out there. It didn't look the same from my perspective. And that's the thing that I really like about Kenny right now, man, is that regardless of if he's having a good play or a bad play, if he got hit or not, he's still showing up that next play like, bro, I'm ready to get it. Let's go. And that's the thing that you got to, you know, like you said, you can't always bank on that. But the fact that he has that, man, that's a huge boost for him as well, man. But I thought all three of them dudes did a ton to help themselves and put them in position to, if you're Kenny, I think he needs to get more exposure. I want to see him now with another unit. Not saying that Mason or Mitch don't deserve those opportunities, but in terms of the distribution of those reps, you can make sure you can do something a little bit better now to see Kenny. Okay, you don't have to have Kenny playing, 3 or 4 series in that second unit, but let me see him get 2 series in that second unit, something like that. Because to me, I thought that he started to look like, yeah, he's above this. This is the college version. When you talk about the first preseason game, man, that late in the game, that's college. A lot of them dudes are not going to be in there on Sunday. But make it look like that. And what did Kenny look like in college? Just like that, cooking them folk. That's why he was a Heisman finalist. So I do want to see him now, next time they're in stadium, go out there with that second unit. Let's see what that looks like. And then eventually, it's like, yo, if he looks like he still belongs, now you give him that opportunity with that first unit. But that's, to me, I think that he showed a good amount in this game right here to make it where he's deserving of that now. Not giving it to him, but he's earned that right now.
Yeah.
I felt like I was talking a lot. My bad on that, man.
Hell no, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Hell no. I loved it. Mitch, I thought he looked really good, actually. I'm obviously rooting for Pickett to get this quarterback 1 spot, but the command that you talked about and just looking like he belonged, I was impressed. First drive, get the touchdown. And then going back to what you were talking about with the incomplete pass, there's been some people ripping on Mitch a little bit, saying like, oh, man, like you guys are praising Mitch like he's a god out here. His second drive stalled, whereas like with Mason and Pickett got a couple touchdowns. Mason was able to get 10 points on the board too. But I thought, I'm with you, it was just like he barely missed that. I liked how he stepped up in the pocket and tried to make a play there. It was, I was actually happy for you to say or clarify that it was just more of a miscommunication thing as opposed to like Mitch just missing the throw.
No, man. Yeah, absolutely. But we understand too, when people are passionate about whoever they're rooting for, sometimes, man, they're going to think of those guys that they like the most. They're going to think of them in a lot higher light. And the guys that they don't like, they're going to try to nitpick, and any opportunity to tear them down, that's where they're going to go with. For me, I'm just able to just kind of sit back a little bit because I don't have as strong a passion for one of these guys. Like for you, like Kenny's your guy, but that dates back to him being at college, so it makes sense. Like for me, I gotta
be real. What I saw with Mitch though, and Mason, I thought Mason played good.
But for you, it's dope that you can do that. Not a lot of people can though. A lot of these people, it's like, yo, if they love Kenny, it's Kenny was great. The other 2 dudes are average at best. If they loved Mitch, then it was Mitch was great. Kenny was only out there with the 3s. Mason still sucks. If they're a Mason guy, then it's like, oh, I love Mason. I don't care what Kenny did, and Mitch, he went out there long enough. So it's like, if they go that road, they're always going to have something to say negative. But I do think, man, when you're talking about just looking at all 3 of these dudes from a bird's eye view without any type of biasness towards any of those 3, man, all 3 of them gave you winning football. all three of those guys, if they're playing like that,
the full game.
Absolutely, for the full game, if all three of them dudes that showed up on Saturday, if they're doing that, man, this team will be as good as we want them to be. If they can do that type of stuff consistently. Now, that's going to be the part of it because we saw them, 2 series for Mitch, 3 for Mason, and then the whole second half for Kenny. So it's still not a complete game by any of these dudes. But in terms of the sample size, that was a good start.
No, 100%. Yeah. The other thing that I took away from Mitch was that he only played 2 series. I feel like that's a QB1 type of stamp of approval by the coaching staff.
Yeah.
In
and out.
Get Mason in. And was he 3 series, you said? Was it 3 or 4?
He was 3.
Whatever it was, he ended
because he ended up right before the half,
Yeah, so, I mean, Mason and Kenny obviously got the most work, but that just feels like, hey, man, you get in, you get out.
Yeah.
Do your little touchdown, warm up a little bit.
It looked good, too. It's like, if that first drive would have been fluky or it would have been more running game scoring, it's different. But it's like, no, you saw the balance in the offense. He did have to make some throws, though. And it was like, it was just good to see that dynamic. Also, them on a third down to extend the drive. It's one thing, man, you hitting those throws on first and second down. The pressure is still there because you're out there on the NFL field. But when you talk about situational football, it is different because we know on third down, is make or break. If we don't get this right here, we're getting off this field. So that's a whole nother level of pressure, let alone just being out there. So to see Mitch have to hit Gunner on that, and it was against the blitz. Blitz cover 1. Gunner does a good job just running a nice little whip route almost, catching it, getting open, turning up, filling it, foot racing it. So I definitely enjoyed that though, because when you're talking about Mitch, he could have easily been like, hey man, there's a pressure right here, man. I ain't got time for this. Freak out. Let me try to run it. But it's like, nah, he stood in that pocket and did what he's supposed to do as a QB1. And I did like that, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded seeing him a little bit more. But that just goes to show I do think he still has the upper hand going forward. I mean, they did it in this game, and I don't think he did anything in it to make you think otherwise, that they're going to drop him down at all.
Yeah.
Because going into it, Mitch, it's your job to lose. That's what we've been hearing, and he didn't lose it in that performance. Yeah. And Mason, yeah, dude, I mean, he made the throw. No one else made that throw. Now, Kenny, some people were saying he was a little bit too conservative. I took it as he was just taking what the defense was giving him, because it's one thing to make short throws and stall out drives. Like, say, we've seen Mason do it before. It's like 3rd and 12 or something, and he just checks it down to a running back, and then we got a punt. I don't think there was any instance where Kenny did that.
I would agree.
He still made some throws outside the numbers, and we were constantly moving the sticks. I thought our stalls just happened to be on a sack, or both 2 sacks, actually. And then the other one was, I thought, a pretty bad play call, that 3rd and 1. Why not let Kenny drop back, use some of that mobility?
Yeah.
It was so obvious. We had 10 tight ends out there.
Absolutely. Well, you remember, though, because we had ran that exact same set earlier in the game on the Anthony McFarland one, and that's, I think it was Connor Hayward. He made the good block on that, along with on the left side, I think it was Green and Dan Moore. They did a good job in terms of collapsing and then allowing him to bubble out that back, whereas on the Kenny Pickett one, it wasn't Connor. It was, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on the tight end's name. It wasn't Raider.
Sternberger.
Yes, it was him. Yeah,
he had a nice little catcher too.
No, he played all right, but he got beat across his face on that play, and that's what ends up happening on that. Yeah, it was one of them ones, man. But it's early in the year. Like, when you talk about the consistency element of it, none of them. Not in terms of, the blocking part of it, tight ends, O-line, even the running backs in some cases, just got to be way more consistent. I think that's the thing. Like, if they can get that part more consistent, I think that this offense could, just based on what we saw. Now, granted, it's a small sample size. I get that. But based on what we saw, if that O-line can become a little bit more consistent in pass pro, I think that they got the weapons in place, especially when they're healthy, based on what we're seeing from Pickens right now. Because even with Pickens, and we're definitely going to talk about what he did in this game because it's warranted 100%.
Multiple things, actually.
But with him, even before we know if he's elite or not, when you're talking about him being out there with the Deontay Johnson and the Chase Claypool in that context, even if he is not an elite top 5 receiver week 1 or week 4, you got to remember, he's not going to be getting the top corner out there. he's going to be facing these type of corners that he's been going against. And that's the other part, maybe even less, depending on how teams match up with him.
At some point, he might, but that means Deontay Claypool are going
absolutely.
up against maybe some no-names.
Yeah. So, to me, I'm like, even if I'm not ready to go full on, he's the best receiver in the league, it's like, man, I still know what this impact is going to be like just by him being out there as well, man.
Seems so seamless with him. Mm-hmm. But I guess last thing with the quarterbacks, I liked how you also clarified the Mason miscommunication with Connor Hayward, because that stuff was floating around on Twitter a little bit. But I'm glad that you said, because I could at least trust you with that.
The thing is this, man, in the preseason, miscommunication happens. Not the sack, but let's see, the Mitch Trubisky, like I said, when he had to get flushed out the pocket, literally on the miscommunication there, to me, is James Daniels. I think he reads it wrong. Chooks, he's the last man on the line of scrimmage. He sees the nickel corner coming in on a blitz. So he bumps out like he's going to take it, slap protection. That's the guy he would pick up. James doesn't read it like this guy's blitzing, and he looks back to help Mason Cole. Mason is sliding over because he's reading the same thing in terms of this being a pressure. So to me, I thought that was on James because he rocks left first. Then that DN that was in front of Chooks goes B-gap, because Chooks is going out there for the blitzer, obviously, and I think that's why James was a little bit late on it. But that's miscommunication. That's just them dudes not being on the same page. When we talk about even on defense, some of that popping up as well. And like I said, we're going to get to those dudes, the linebackers particularly, but a lot of just miscommunication going on. And when you talk about that first preseason game, that is a common thing. Number one, the noise part of it. Number two, the fatigue. When it's your first time in that stadium, man, especially for them young dudes, your heart crazy. You're talking, you're thinking, you're hearing something. You might be hearing yourself. Like, that's the type of vibe that is out there, in these preseason games for a lot of them younger dudes. So when you talk about some of the mistakes and stuff, I don't put too much into it because it was the first one.
Yeah, because I think Mason looked sharp, decisive for the most part. I was just bummed I saw that borderline interception. Then there was one or two passes that were incomplete around the line of scrimmage, just being like, dude, these look like bonehead plays. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're inaccurate on a dude that's like 3 yards in front of you. Yeah. So that's why if I had to do like a stock up down, now I don't know how you want to even just grade the performances in game. I'm sure everyone's got their take. I think all quarterbacks played really good across the board. Agree. So I mean, if I'm leaning one, Pickett, he had the game-winning drive, he had the 2 touchdowns. I'll say that, but I see anyone making a case for any of these guys. Yeah. But in terms of just like stock up, stock down, I'd say Mitch stock up, Mason stock down, Kenny stock up.
Okay.
The only reason Mason stocked down is because I feel like he's in a spot where he had to go above and beyond.
Yes.
Whereas like if it's equal and you're making it a conversation between like who had a better game loses. Or not, and he had this borderline pick. Now I know we talked about the miscommunication,
but either way, I'm with you.
Or some of those bonehead plays around the line of scrimmage.
Absolutely.
Like, bro, we needed perfection out of you.
Yes. I would agree 100%. That is the knock right now in terms of how you grade these guys. I thought that Kenny definitely showed a lot. I know the context of it. You have to take that into account, for me at least, just because I know what that unit is out there, But
he didn't have Pickens, though. That's the other thing.
I don't even care about who he had out there on his side. I'm just saying in the simple sense of you're the 20th overall selection. You're going against guys that maybe even tomorrow they're not going to be in the NFL anymore because they're cutting down the rosters by 5 tomorrow. So it's like, man, you're going against guys like that. But my whole thing, and this is one of the Tunch Ilkins, man, shout out to him, man, RIP. But he says, man, if you're out there with the stiffs and you can't beat the stiffs, well, guess what that means? You are a stiff. So to me, seeing Kenny out there, it didn't matter who he's out there with. He needed to look like he was that guy, and he did. For Mitch, I thought Mitch, clean, efficient, in and out. Boom. For Mason, yes, I thought that he had the throw of the night. The biggest issue was it wasn't enough wow. In terms of that throw was amazing. That was the wow that we were looking for. But when you're talking about, how Kenny was able to finish and how we know that feeling. You don't think the coaches didn't feel that too? That's the other part of it. They felt that energy. They felt that excitement.
Right.
So they're not fools either. They didn't feel that when it was with Mason, even though Mason still did his thing. Right, but
that has to maybe even go into decisions. So when in terms of energy and what it brings to the stadium and
so
the
it's like it was dope that Mason was able to overcome that adversity. But in terms of his overall, did he do enough where you're saying, hey, he's definitively better than Kenny Pickett? He did not. And that's the issue in terms of when you're talking about those two dudes as the preseason continues to narrow down, the regular season gets here. Mason can't be just good. he has to do the above and beyond because, unfortunately, the gift and the curse for him is the familiarity. He's been here multiple seasons, so there already is, this bank of stuff that we've seen from him, good and bad, but he also has to overcome that. Whereas when you're talking about Mitch is the new guy. He just got paid this offseason. We're not tripping on him like that. Kenny, 20th overall draft pick. He's here. He's not tripping on him. Mason's the outlier. Mason in this situation has to figure out how to go above and beyond. So for him, man, bounce back week. And not even bounce back week in the sense of him having a bad game, but just in the sense you got to just do more. But he knew that going in. This isn't anything new. We're not saying anything that a lot of us haven't already spoken of, even during OTAs when we were talking about how Mason was still looking good. It's like, he still has to make this definitive. If there's any debate, they're not rolling with him. That's just the reality of it. So for him, man, I would definitely agree with you on the stock being down, or I would say just stock neutral, because I don't want, when I think of the down part, I'm like, did he do something to make it go down?
Trust me, I think he played good. It's just in the overall grand scheme of things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Because he made himself a little bit more expendable.
Mm-hmm. No, he did.
If it's close with Pickett, why the hell wouldn't we just stick with Pickett? And not saying he has to be the starter, but as the quarterback too, then.
And this isn't Arthur Moat saying this. These are the words that Coach Tomlin has told me on numerous occasions when we played. It's like, this is my theory. This is how I operate. If it is close, I'm going with the young guy. If it is close, I'm going with the cheaper guy. If it's close, I'm going with the 20th overall selection instead of a Mason Rudolph who's been here multiple years and really hasn't lived up to the first round grade that they had on him. Now, we know he wasn't drafted in the first round, but that's been what they've told us, that he had the first round grade. So just in that context of it. But I still think, like I said, all three of those dudes, man, they definitely did, enough to help themselves going forward.
Yeah, how could you not like what you saw out of the quarterbacks?
Yeah, absolutely, man.